Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television is sponsored by Potash Corp of White Springs. Potash Corp, helping nature provide.
Hello everyone and welcome to Perspective. This is a public affairs presentation of Florida Gateway College. My name is Mike McKee and my guest on the program today is Pat Shea. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the American Red Cross North Florida Regional Office in Jacksonville, which encompasses Lake City and Columbia County. We're going to talk to Pat about what's happening with the Red Cross, how you can get involved, and how you can make a contribution to this worthwhile service to Americans all over the country. We'll be back in a minute. Don't go away.
Treehouse in the sky, but he's ignoring the instructions.
Good luck, big guy.
His kids know that he's building without a clue. Never been so good with nails and glue. Now we're trapped inside a box. I hope mom knows what to do. Mom! See, you don't have to be perfect to be the perfect parent.
Thousands of siblings in foster care will take you just as you are.
Welcome back to Perspective here on Florida Gateway College Television. Pat Shea is the CEO of the American Red Cross, the Jacksonville office. He's been in the job for a little more than a year. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for having me this morning.
Now, I wanted to, everybody's heard of the Red Cross. All ages have heard of the Red Cross. It's a fixture in American tradition. I mean, the Red Cross was started in the 1800s.
Yeah, 1881, sure.
Why was the Red Cross started in the first place?
Yeah, so Claire Barton, our founder, saw the need of servicing members of the armed forces that were suffering, veterans, and the devastation that happens on the battlefields. And so she stayed attentive to what was happening in Switzerland with the original Red Cross, and developed a concept to respond to those circumstances by mobilizing the community.
And it has continued, the tradition of the Red Cross has continued through World War I, World War II. I mean, and it is expanded in what the Red Cross does. So talk about some of the things that the folks around here would know about the Red Cross. I mean, everybody hears when people are burned out of their home, the Red Cross is always there.
Yeah,
what other things?
Yeah, so we're in your community, and we try to be in your community through any number of ways. We do lots of presentations for preparedness for disasters that might occur in a community. We do education on water safety, we can, and health services like CPR classes and so forth. We help to try to talk to the community about being prepared for all types of significant events that could occur in their lives, both local and widespread.
Now, again, when we talk about Red Cross, it's normally when there's a disaster or an emergency, and it seems like the Red Cross is always there. How is that?
Yeah.
How is it that happens?
Yeah, we're there because the community's there. Our Red Cross concept of helping people in crisis is volunteer-led. 96% of everybody who has a Red Cross ID badge is a volunteer. And so as strong as our communities are, is as strong as our Red Cross is. And so we're there because our community's there.
Now, the volunteers, you think about the Red Cross, they're always there, and it's when you see the Red Cross, it's volunteers that are there.
Yeah.
That's really remarkable that you can, because the disasters don't happen Monday through Friday,
no, they don't.
8 to 5.
Yeah.
They happen on the weekends, they happen at night. I was telling you a story that the Red Cross, very familiar to us, in that we had a house that was being threatened by a sinkhole, and the Red Cross was there.
Yeah.
And they were there 24/7.
Right.
Is it just the special volunteers that you have?
Sure, it is the special volunteers. It's these communities that develop these individuals that have hearts for service, and what we try to do is harness that that power that comes with folks that have a heart to help one another in a way that delivers a service that's helpful to somebody that's in disaster. But without that community, then the concept of Red Cross is not nearly as successful.
Now, typically when there's an event, say there's a fire, or let's step back and maybe say not a fire, but maybe a disaster where there's a train derailment and you've had to evacuate folks. Red Cross steps in and does what?
Certainly. So first of all, we'll be partners with government agencies like emergency management and so forth. And so we'll be notified by that group of first responders, and we'll begin partnering with them and assess what the requirements are. But two things that we'll primarily do. Number one is if there's a displacement of people, if people have to leave their homes and go somewhere, we can, on very short notice, organize a group of volunteers that will help the local community steward those or house those individuals in shelters that make sense for the community. So we can partner with houses of worship, with community centers, and then bring the volunteers who know how to help individuals who have been displaced survive and or flourish while the situation is being dealt with by emergency management.
And I guess it depends on the disaster, but if it's a large disaster, then you're talking shelters. If it's maybe a smaller disaster, then I think you can put them up in hotels.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So on any individual disaster, and single-family house fires is probably the most critical one that we're dealing with, especially this time of year, as we see an incidence, an increase of those events, is a great example of that. And that is our volunteers will be contacted by someone of authority, usually in this case would be a fire department representative, and tell us that there's been a family that no longer can be in their home because of an event. And our volunteers will show up and begin that conversation with that family about what their needs are. And then we have an opportunity, because of the generosity of the American public and the donors that support us, we have an opportunity to put them in that moment in a place that's safe and where they can start thinking about their future.
What types of things that maybe we don't think of that families need in situations like that?
Well, they need everything.
Right. Especially in a house fire where someone's been burned out.
Yeah, it's not hyperbole to say they need everything when we are helping, because when you're working or responding to a fire in your home, the data will tell you that you have about 2 minutes to get out if a fire occurs in your house before something bad's going to happen to you, smoke or whatever. So think about what you can take with you in 2 minutes if you're summoned out of your bed at 2 in the morning with a smoke alarm. What can you take with you? Not very, very much. So our volunteers are equipped with various procedures and access to resources to help with clothes, shoes, food, and as well as relationships with local hotels and so forth, and to include getting them transportation to the location. Maybe their car keys have been left in the house and they can't drive to the hotel. So we try to fill the needs for that first 3 days worth of time of when that displacement has occurred, so that it gives a family some time to think about and start dealing with the longer term implications.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, if you thought about losing everything you had, everything, that includes photographs. I mean, you're dealing with something that, your home is your home.
Yeah.
Talk about psychologically the volunteers, because I know that they have empathy for what's just occurred, and so there has to be a special person that does that type of work, especially if they're going to get called out of bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to
Mike,
help.
Thanks so much for asking about that part of it. Our volunteers, through their heart and through their experience, also bring hope to families by being there when maybe no one else was available to be there. We also have for a newly prospective volunteer, we have in our orientation training, which is fairly extensive, to develop a disaster action team, has a fairly extensive education program, not burdensome in the time that it takes to do it, but more so in the content that we try to equip the volunteer to be successful. Part of that is a mental health component. a certain way to relate. But fundamentally, the folks that come with a heart to be part of our response teams just need some orientation to it. They already have this feeling for people that's essential for Red Cross in delivering the hope to families.
Well, and it's got to be a special person that does that. You know, these people are just, you don't just find them off the street. They have to want to be that person.
Yeah.
And that's I guess that's what makes the Red Cross the Red Cross, is you have good people.
Yeah, we have good people. It's just tremendously people. We have even our professional staff that organize the volunteers in a way, or put the opportunities for volunteers to be organized. Partnering up with the community for the response. And what I have heard from the volunteers, and we have volunteers that have served for decades, it's amazing, is that once you're in the mission, it's very, very difficult to not be part of that mission again and again and again. On the other side too, there can be some times that maybe that's not potentially what you're interested in, and so we can be adaptable too, so that if you go to that type of response and you're like, wow, that's really tough, I don't know if I can do that every day, there is plenty of other ways that we can use your time and talent.
Like answering the phone?
Well, everything from stewarding the chapter. Our local Lake City office here, in Columbia County has, we could do more if we had more folks that were willing to spend more time there. The Red Cross is enormously empowering to individuals who want to serve.
Now, Amber from your staff sent me some statistics. I don't think people would realize this, that in Columbia County last year, 40 families were helped by the Red Cross. 119 people lost their homes.
Yeah.
That's unreal. I mean, we don't see it very often that people are that many fires in Columbia County alone.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's amazing.
I won't trouble the listeners, but that's done in all of that type of realization is shown in all of the counties that we service in North Florida and across the country for the Red Cross. I mean, I'll throw the one number out at you. It's about 70,000 times a year nationwide. So the idea that because the storm season was so small this year, or not very relevant to our lives, that there isn't a need for folks to join our team is mainly because we're working hard to get that awareness out, because the things are occurring. They're occurring every day in our communities that need Red Cross help.
And you mentioned storms. Tropical Storm Debbie a couple years ago devastated this area, and there were many people who lost homes, and the Red Cross was there.
Yeah, it was, and Debbie's one of those examples of a really tough response. Now, I was in the Navy at that time. I wasn't a part of the response, but I educated myself on what do we do, what have we done, and in Debbie's case, where it was a huge rain soaker. And it started with this idea that, hey, we got a family that has a problem over here. Oh, we've got a family that has a problem over here. And then it grew. It showed that these disasters are sneaky, and you have to have this group of individuals who are willing to engage, even when other folks aren't really thinking that it's a big deal.
And you and I talked before we came on the program today about the relationship that you have with FEMA. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit, in that when you have an event like Tropical Storm Debbie, the United Way comes and helps where they can in getting people to the services that are needed. And then the Red Cross comes in, and if there's no place for them to stay, and we're talking long term when the water's in the house for a month at a time. Yeah. Talk about the shelters and the relationship you have with FEMA.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are partnered with government agencies like FEMA across the country, and to include here in Columbia County, through what's referred to, and I'll use a technical term here, ESF6, which is Emergency Services Function Number 6, and that is sheltering and feeding. And so the Red Cross has been asked by the government agency to be the lead volunteer organization, or the lead non-government organization, to help steward communities in response through the temporary shelters that a disaster would require. So we are, to use a term, lockstep with government in and the experts in government that can have greater resources to understand what's going on in a situation, and then we would respond with our volunteers to where government thinks is most needed.
And so volunteers help in those situations. You have to have someone manning the shelter.
Yeah.
You have to have someone coordinating the food
Yeah.
that folks need to get. And again, and then you've got volunteers that have to be taken care of, and if you've got, you need volunteers to do just about everything.
Yeah, can I give you an example?
Sure.
So last May, I was in the job for about 6 months at that point. We had flash floods over in Escambia, Santa Rosa County in the Pensacola area. And it had a little bit of news run here in the eastern and central part of Florida. But inside Pensacola, there were neighborhoods that were just absolutely devastated. And it looked like one of those kind of gully washers that you would see out in the western desert, just water just tearing up neighborhoods. And that became a disaster response for the North Florida region, headquartered out of our Jacksonville offices. And we had over 200 volunteers engaged for about a month in Pensacola, doing everything from temporary shelters, we had 6 at the beginning, all the way through to helping the community work through United Way agencies and the United Way Actual in the long-term recovery plans for these families that had homes that were destroyed by the floods. It's classic.
So how do I volunteer? I mean, do you have to be retired?
Yeah.
How does that work? How would I go about becoming a volunteer?
Yeah, so, well, thanks for asking that too. So the easiest way to start the plug-in is to go to redcross.org, and then it'll say, find your local chapter, put in Jacksonville, put in Lake City, and the software will get you to the right data entry. And you'll start entering just like you would registering on a lot of other online forms. You'll register your name and your interest area, and there's some questions. And then soon after you hit the send button, one of our volunteer specialist staff members will reach out to you, and they'll start chatting with you and to see what your interests are, what your strengths and what you might want to do. Once that interview has happened, and it's not an interview as much as an information finding concept there, you'll be scheduled to have an orientation, and you'll come in and you'll start that process of aligning your interests to the needs of Red Cross.
And when you volunteer, some people don't want to make that commitment. If they've been retired, they want to help, but they don't want to help a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that
any
better.
Yeah.
You don't want to do too much, but you don't want to do too little, and so you just don't volunteer at all. Is there a place for someone like that?
Yeah, there is. I would encourage folks. We have, first of all, you'll have to, if you want to be a Red Cross credentialed or badge volunteer, there'll be training to get done. So you have to be prepared to have some commitment to having the orientation training that you need to be successful, so that should you go on a response, you can do the job that you've been signed up to do. Once that training is complete, we'll develop a tailored engagement approach with you. So there are some volunteers that we have on our rolls that really only want to go to the big events. And so they'll stay current through education and so forth, but we'll put in their profile that these are national volunteer type of people. And so when a Hurricane Sandy happens or something, those are the folks that we would call up. And then we have other ones not interested in going to New York, want to stay in Columbia County, but I want to help my local community. And then we'll tailor your team, the team that you're a part of, to that group that's doing those types of things.
Now, you and I also talked about, when we're talking retirement, that older folks are involved in the Red Cross, but young people are needed as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the next generation of Red Cross volunteers are in high school and college right now, and so how do they get involved?
Yeah, so first of all, you're right on. We are seeking relationships across all of the community, all the demographics of the community, cultural affinities, all of those types of things, including age groups. And so we've got a developing program in high schools. We can help steward a Red Cross club in a high school. We need some help there inside the school itself. Most schools require that there be a teacher that will steward the kids and so forth, or a parent who's willing to commit to making sure that the club is viable and things like that. But we have ways to engage high school communities that way, and those groups will do small groups, small projects and so forth that help the Red Cross and or provide just a way for the students to be connected, so that maybe they're not disaster people as a 16-year-old, although in a big disaster, we could use 16-year-olds. But they start learning about what Red Cross does. So as they go through periods of life, that when they do have greater time and talent, that we can use that at that moment in time. So we're really seeking relationships in the community.
So again, if you would like more information about volunteering and maybe even doing a chapter in the high school here at Columbia High or Fort White High School, there's the information that you can go to, redcross.org/FL/Jacksonville, or the telephone number 904-358-8091. I believe the American Red Cross is in great hands when the CEO of the American Red Cross will drive over from Jacksonville to Lake City to come do a TV show. It's definitely in great hands. I want to ask about donations, though, as well, because you do, if you're providing food for people, someone's got to buy that food.
Yeah.
It's nice of some organizations like donut shops provide donuts for the firefighters at a scene, but you guys need money. Yeah,
certainly enough. And we're going through a period right now of the longest non-major disaster period, which is great for the American public and great for my own family. It's about 12 months since there's been some really big event, and we are in people's consciousness when those events are happening, and we are blessed with the generosity of the American people. But Red Cross volunteers are responding every day. And so if you're interested in helping us that way, if that's the way you can help the Red Cross, you have time and you have talent and you have some treasure, then we do have requirements, single family house fires, those types of things that we respond to every day are enabled because of the generosity of donors. Our staff is really small. I have 30 paid staff for 35 counties. So our professional staff, people worry about administrative costs and so forth. We are working really diligently to move the help to the community. And that could be empowering the volunteer, or that can be actual, money transfers for people that have been displaced by fires. So there's many ways that your donor dollar helps. And so you can go to redcross.org or you can call our local chapter and we can help you with that. If you're an organization, if you're a business, we could help set up contingency ways. So for instance, if something were to happen where you want to rally your employees, we can help set that up. There's any number of ways to help support the Red Cross, but it's only the generosity of the American people that causes it to happen. So
the two ways: you can either go directly to the Red Cross, actually go to the local office. For those who are familiar with the office, it is in the old Montgomery building off Hernando Street here in Lake City, behind the new deli downtown, deli and pub. And you can make a donation directly to the organization through that means. You can go on the website. You can also earmark your donations through the United Way. If you're a United Way contributor and you'd like to send money to the Red Cross, you can ask that it be donated directly to the Red Cross. I want to talk to you before we go about the governor of the state asked that, I believe this week or the first week in January was to honor the first responders. Are the Red Cross considered first responders as well? Because I know the firefighters, the EMTs, and the police are first responders, but you would think that you're on the scene as well.
Our volunteers are first responders in my heart. I'm not sure all of the different motivations. I think 52 weeks a year is a first responder week, and so yes. The other night we had an apartment fire over there in Jacksonville, and from the time that it started to be talked about to the time that individuals were helped to get into into a hotel, that time frame was about 2 hours. From beginning to end. So I would say that's pretty good first response.
Oh yeah, and again, When you think about it and you look at the statistics, 40 families that were in fires here in Columbia County last year were assisted by the American Red Cross. You know, sometimes you take them for granted because they're always there, but don't do that. Make a contribution to the Red Cross. Volunteer at the Red Cross if you've got the time to do it, or if you've got the treasure, as Pat said, that give to the Red Cross so that they can help your neighbors in their most desperate time of need. Pat Shea is the CEO of the American Red Cross North Florida Regional Office.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much for being on the program.
Thanks, Mike, for having me.
Thanks as the CEO for coming over here
Yeah.
and sharing the Red Cross story with us. And thank you for watching Perspective here on Florida Gateway College Television. Until next time, I'm Mike McKee. We'll see you